Hey scrappers, if you're looking to figure out what materials you should sell this week or hold this week, now is the time to do it. Our weekly report is going to give you that information, up-to-date market news, pricing. Let's get right into it and we'll talk about it inside. Hey scrappers, Tom here. Today is Wednesday, July 5th, 2023. Happy 4th of July and happy 247th birthday to the US of A. Hopefully everyone had a very nice holiday. We had some light trading happening on Monday where we saw some of the copper prices jump up, but what we saw this morning was those jumping in prices on the shortened trading day were quickly eroded, and we'll talk about some of those copper prices later. But just to give you an idea, next week in our video, it's going to be pre-recorded, and we're going to be doing a 6-month conversation on the markets, first 6 months of the year versus the second 6 months of the year. So if there are any questions or specific things that you'd like to talk about, or have me talk about, or research going into the first 6 months of the year versus the second, let me know. We did this a few months ago and it worked out really well. Gave us a few ideas that people wanted us to talk about, so we'll get into those things. So where are the markets? You know, if we pull up some of the prices that we've seen reported over the last week, we have started to see the copper prices slowing. You'll see a decreasing copper market over the last 7 days versus the 30-day average. If you look at Bear Bright, it's hovering just over $3 per pound nationally. Now, when I look at that number, that shouldn't surprise me. On the trading side of things, copper prices had a 28-cent uptick from the low, and here we are almost having the entire 28 cents eroded. We're at like a 20-cent downtick from the high of the markets that we saw, and that's just in the last 3 weeks. So seeing some of these reported prices decreasing in the ways that they have doesn't really surprise me, because what's happening is scrapyards are getting these false hopes of prices, and when you have 25-cent swings in a period of 5 trading days, that's upsetting to the markets in multiple ways, and we've talked about this before. As a scrapyard, I like to buy and sell things every day. So if I'm all of a sudden seeing prices jolting up really quickly, I don't know if I should sell a lot right now, if I should wait for the market prices to go up, if I should sell a little, hold a little. That's kind of my theory. I sell some, hold some, sell some, hold some, but I'm never, holding everything, where other friends of mine will hold until they have certain price points that they hit. But when I see some of these prices over the last 30 days moving the way that they are, really very erratically, you had a lot of ups and downs. If we could click on Bear Bright Wire and just show you some of the ups and downs on it, if you look at the chart, it just shows you how crazy things are when it comes to Bear Bright. With a price point at 301, we were higher, we were closer to 315, 320, and you can see some of the prices that were posted here, 330, 320, and those prices are going to start to now decrease, and we're going to see more 280s, 290 numbers come in the coming weeks. So, right now you might want to hold on to some of your copper. I don't know if we're going to have a huge increase this summer, but we will talk about that a little more next week. Now, if we go back to those copper charts, we'll see some of the other numbers. Number one tubing, for instance, still holding relatively strong. We got a price point around 290, up slightly, and some of those numbers on number one tubing are a little stronger. And we found that Bear Bright tends to be more of a loss leader, where people will have higher prices to bring in more business. Number one tubing is more of a true number. So normally a 10-cent difference isn't quite where it is. It's normally 15-cent difference from Bear Bright, but we're still seeing nice price trends here. Number one flashing, very similar, just slightly below $3. And we can talk briefly about steel, where we have seen the steel markets increasing over the last 30 days, but moving towards the rest of the summer, I don't see a lot of real great things coming into the markets. But let's talk about copper for a little longer. Copper prices are going to be really funny for the balance of this summer. While the demand for electric vehicles and the electrification is still going very strong, we're seeing slowdowns on different sides of things that are a little upsetting to the markets right now. One slowdown that we've seen is on the catalytic converter side of things going into the gas engines. But that also means that we may start to see a slowdown when it comes to electric vehicles and the huge demand for copper. While we saw Tesla just have a blowout quarter selling more cars than they ever had in a 3-month period, we also saw them have large cost-cutting measures for their price points to try to build that up. Now, we don't know if that's a short-term thing to fuel their overall supply to the vehicles and demand, or if there is a potential slowdown happening, because I heard a couple people talking from Ford and from GM recently about the electrification, saying how they don't see profitability coming until 2030 to 2035. So that's 7 to 12 years from now. So while they're going to need a lot more copper, we might not see the price point on copper reflect that in the next few years, as we're kind of in a slow down period that I can see right now, where we're seeing a lot less projects happening compared to last summer, for instance. And that may affect the markets in a bigger way for the balance of 2023 up until the summer of 2024, when we really have a whole new, presidential race going on. So who knows what's going to happen. But on the copper side of things, while we've seen weakening demand, it has been horrible. But when we talk about some of these EVs, that I can't not mention stainless steel or the nickel markets. And while not a lot of stainless goes into the actual cars, the raw ore nickel does go into these cars. And what we've seen on the stainless prices is they've really bottomed out in the last few months. And I changed my recommendation to sell right now opposed to hold. When you see 33 cents a pound for an average 304 stainless price, and it's now been there for this year, we saw a quick uptick in the fall of 2022 into the winter, but now we've seen stainless prices dropping. We've seen nickel prices going from $28,000 or $29,000 a ton down to $21,000 a ton. And while I'm continuing to read articles about how they need nickel in these batteries, they're trying to do more from raw ore than they are from refining stainless steel and pulling the nickel out of there. Maybe it's too expensive to separate these items. I would imagine that if they could separate the nickel from the iron inside of the stainless steel, that they would be doing that more often. It would be an easier recycling method, kind of like putting new aluminum cans on the shelves, that a lot of these EV vehicles would be able to do it. But it seems like a lot of them really want that raw ore, which is coming from all parts of the world. But we've seen the stainless markets really just drag down very poorly. I mean, with the nickel prices still, in my opinion, strong, $8 to $9 per pound for nickel is what it comes out to. We should see stainless prices at least 50 to 60 cents for 304, and it's not even getting there. And one of the other interesting things that a couple articles I read where they were talking about the Ukrainian conflict with Russia, and they were saying that the little upheaval that we saw a week and a half ago, what happens if the war is over? And they were saying, what happens if all of a sudden, maybe someone takes over in Russia, or they end up just having a peace treaty? What happens then? Because the world has had this worldwide stoppage on buying commodities from Russia, even though Russian copper, Russian aluminum, Russian nickel is still in the London Metal Exchange. What's going to happen if the war is over? Is Russia going to flood the market with more materials that they've been holding back on, where they have been restricted in some of their sales, but some of their sales are still making their way into the London Metal Exchange as Russian originated metals? That may actually flood the market with more materials, and we might see the pricing of aluminum shooting down. We might see the prices of platinum, palladium, rhodium shooting down even further, affecting the catalytic converter markets. So these could be things that happen as a result of the war ending. Now, we also could see prices on oil and energy going down, because now there's not as much of a restriction, and maybe Russia will start feeding Europe again. But, these are all what ifs, but they are things that we talk about. And that's how we come to a lot of our conclusions and predictions over the months, just by reading about what ifs and when they actually do happen, because some of these things will come true, how they're going to kind of move around and change the market. So these are just little things to think about. But I want to quickly digress and talk about one of my stories of the week. This story happened when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And I remember doing a big clean out of machines. And my dad brought me down to the yard and he said, all right, here's a flathead screwdriver and here's a hammer. About 30 or 40 gumball machines lined up. And the flathead screwdriver and the hammer, well, those were my key. And I was able to pop the thing in, turn it and break it, pop the back open. Not only was my job to drain the gumballs and not have the glass break all over the place, but it was also to drain the machines of quarters and then roll them up. So, this is 25 years ago. So I remember getting all those old paper rolls and stacking up, I think it was $10 worth of quarters or something like that to put in all the things. But I just remember all of these machines, and I've read many stories from many you scrappers scrapping washing machines and vending machines. And I know that gumball machines may not be as prevalent nowadays, but if you ever do see them, that flathead and that hammer, pop in, turn it, pop at the piece right out. I remember filling a bag of quarters and other coins that we ended up wrapping and bringing to the bank. But just one of the scrap stories that I remember having as a kid. As an adult, there's a lot more, but they're not as cool as some of the kid ones. But these are ones that we like to share with you guys. So that's what's going on there in my scrap story land. But I briefly mentioned Russia and the catalytic converter problem. Platinum prices below $900 an ounce. Palladium prices below $1,100 an ounce. Rhodium prices below $3,700 an ounce. What does that mean for the catalytic converter prices? Well, we've now seen some prices, and we showed this last week, very low. We've seen very low prices, and a lot of these prices that you are able to see here, these are some national catalytic converter averages, $83.57 for OEM catalytic converter averages right now. That's a really low number considering a year and a half ago, we were around $240. And many of these are ranges of cats based on the different metals that are in there. But the current pricing on catalytic converters is unfortunately going to be depressed for a long period of time. We don't see rhodium prices, multiplying by 10 from $3,500 an ounce to $35,000 an ounce, or even by 8, to $28,000 an ounce again. That's just not going to happen. And those huge run-ups that we saw really, they upset the market in multiple ways where tens of thousands of people had their cats stolen. Now we're seeing laws enacted in every state right now, either has a law passed on catalytic converter purchased, or they have a law that's either in their legislative body or being voted on. So that's why a lot of these laws have changed, because you had such a heavy theft on catalytic converters. And we've seen not only the prices go down, but the thefts went down along with them. Now, over our rcats.com, we've continued to buy all catalytic converters when all documentation is shown to us. 10-day free price locks, free quotes, free shipping on OEM catalytic converters. So if you're looking to get a quote on your cat, while I've had in recent weeks to possibly hold some of your cat prices, right now you're not looking at any strengthening markets. So I don't know what to tell you. Some people like to sell their cats within a day or two because they know that they can get paid, but it's really hard when you have cat prices that were so high going so low. It's kind of opposite from gas. You guys remember June 22, where we were paying $5-6 a gallon for gas. Today you're paying $3.50, and that's still expensive compared to like 4 years ago, but it doesn't feel as bad. Where it's the opposite on the catalytic converter side of things, where people are getting quotes for the same cats that they were getting $400 for. Now they're getting quotes for $120. These are weird times, and that's why commodity prices are so strange to deal with. People just think that if they got $3 last time, that it's $3 this time. And you don't think about that. And that's why we try to do these weekly reports also. We let you know about these prices, hold catalytic converter prices for 10 days, tell you about the overall markets, and hopefully it gives you a little more insight on where the markets are and kind of where they're going. One market we haven't really touched on much today is steel. And if we pull up some of the steel prices, which we've seen, while they're down slightly week over week, we still have a very nice upward trend on the steel markets. And as you can see here on iScrapApp.com, you got all these prices that are reported by yourself and other scrappers. So check these out. But what we've seen on heavy melt, 220 a ton, nice uptick over the last 30 days. Light iron prices are hovering around $140 a ton nationally, another really strong price. So we're seeing some strong prices, and that's because we did see a run up in those markets during the end of May and the month of June of about $40 to $60. Now, I know we always talk about these large prices, and many people will hear the words that I'm saying and say, well, my scrapyard's still paying 6 cents a pound. So report those prices, put them online. This way you can kind of know where they are. And eventually we're going to have more regional based pricing. So you'll be able to kind of dissect things out where currently we're in a national mode. But steel prices, it sounded funny. They are going up 30 to 40% when you look at them, compared to a month and a half ago. And it's very hard to hear a 30 or 40% increase when you're not getting, that much more money on a per pound basis. It's a few cents, but we did see a nice increase, and we did see some of those light iron prices really dipping low for a while, approaching $100 a ton. So seeing light iron, that's kind of the bellwether that we look for at $140. That's a really strong number right now. We've seen car prices over $160, $170. And believe it or not, in the coming weeks, we are going to have a really cool car video that we're going to be having one of our auto dismantler friends giving kind of a whole guide showing you how to take cars apart, how long it takes with the proper tools. And then we'll talk about some tools that you may be able to use when taking cars apart, or what to use, when to look for them, how to learn about different cars and different parts on them. So these are going to be different things that we bring up in the coming weeks as well. But don't forget, go to iScrapApp.com, download and use the app, not only for quotes on catalytic converters, but for reporting many of the prices that you guys have out there. Ask us questions so we can build some of those questions into our 6-month price reports that we're going to have coming out next week on the 5th, the 12th. Today's the 5th. Any other questions, let us know so we can bring those up. We're going to continue to pump out some of these videos and answer many of these questions. So let us know what you have. And until next week, scrappers, I'll scrap you later.
Thanks for checking out this scrap video. For more exclusive scrap video content, please become a YouTube member of our channel today. Thank you, and I'll scrap you later.